Hello, it's Lisa again. This week's story is a continuation from last week's story, so we're still going to be talking about Elijah. Last week, he was at the brook, and between last week and this week, the brook has dried up, so now there's no water for him, so he needs to go somewhere else. So God sends him into town and tells him to look for a widow. And there's a widow and her son there, and they're just about to run out of food. And so Elijah finds them and says, "Can you make me some bread?" And she says, "Well, I really don't have enough stuff to do that with." And he says, "Well, if you'll just do this for me, then God will provide for you." So she took a step of faith. She made some bread for Elijah, and then her and her son had flour and oil the whole rest of the time that there was a drought. So she took a step of faith, and God provided for her and her family abundantly, and Elijah too. So that's what we're going to be talking about this week, is how God provides and how we can help each other. And our story is still coming from 1 Kings. The first activity this week is going to be talking to the kids about how they can help. This lady and her son, they helped Elijah, so we want them to figure out how they can help. So it's called How Can I Help? And you use your ball, have them sit in a circle, and whoever's the teacher holds the ball first and rolls the ball to a child, and then you ask them to tell you some way they can help somebody. So after they answer it, they'll roll the ball back to you, then you roll it to somebody else, ask them that question. So you just kind of take turns back and forth and have them talk about different ways that they can help each other. And the second game is kind of a community helper Simon Says kind of a thing. So you'll line up the kids, make them stand, like an arm's length apart so they're not poking each other, and call out a community helper, like a fireman, policeman, teacher, doctor, whatever, and have them act that out so they can show you how those people in our community help each other and help us. And then the third activity, everybody should have some kind of plastic bread. Some of them have big loaves, some have bagels. So everybody has a different kind of piece of bread. And this is going to be like hot potato. So you give somebody the bread, turn on some music on your phone or the DVD player, and just like hot potato, have them pass the bread around. And then when the music stops, whoever has the bread, they have to be out. So the full instructions for the potato game are in the curriculum, but that should be something super fun. And while you're doing it, you can talk to them about how the widow made bread for Elijah. And then the transition activity this week is super fun. And even if you transition at the beginning, like if your class leaves as soon as church starts, you can still do this transition activity because it kind of follows the past 3 weeks. Last week we talked about the birds feeding Elijah. The week before that we talked about how God took care of the birds. So this week when you're going to the gym or to art or wherever you're going, you ask them, who provides for us? Who provides food? And they point to the sky. God. Who provides water? And they point to the sky. God. So that's something that you can do. And even if you do leave the class right away, while you're taking off shoes or lining up, give them a little hint of what the story's going to be about. The kids that go to art first, give them a little hint. Today we're going to be talking about Elijah and someone that helped him. So when they get to art or they get to music, they kind of know what to expect and are a little bit familiar with the story. And this week in art, we're going to have a super fun surprise that we do not have prepared yet, but it'll be super exciting on Sunday. But we're also going to be playing with Play-Doh. So since the widow used her flour and her oil to make bread, we're going to be using Play-Doh this week in the art room and let them make some bread or let them just roll some shapes or animals or whatever, but they can see how the woman used the oil and the flour and mixed them all together to make this bread. So we don't get to play with the Play-Doh in the art room very often, so this should be really fun for them. And the other super fun surprise, it's a little gross, but it'll be super fun. And it will show them how when you mix things together, it makes something. So they'll understand how when she mixed the oil and the water together, it made this bread for Elijah to eat. And the full reference for this week's story is 1 Kings 17, 7 through 16. See you Sunday.